Hey guys, it's me, CTG Aria, founder of CoolTransGirl.com, and in case you are new here, I essentially create the content I wish I had access to earlier in my transition, revolving around health, wellness, and spirituality from the perspective of a trans woman. Yay! And before we get started, I just want to say thank you to all of the new people that have been following me on Instagram since I've started posting a reel every day for almost 30 days now, which is super exciting because I never thought that was something that I would be able to do. So if you are new here, welcome. Super happy to have you here. And before we get into today's topic, I just want to give give you a little bit of background information. So today we're going to be talking about DL men and how love is meant to be seen, and how you cannot be in a relationship with a guy that is DL. If you are in a quote unquote relationship with a guy but you have not met his friends or his family, that's not a relationship, sister. I'm sorry to tell you. And I didn't I didn't know that, okay? I had to learn that the hard way. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this in the first place is because it is something that I have gone through recently, and I've been procrastinating putting out this episode because it feels like the end of a chapter, and it feels like a nail in the coffin for me to move on, and for me to sit here and talk about this and have to stand on business, because it would be embarrassing if I still entertained it. But I don't want to delve into it too heavy, in the sense of just everything that happened within that relationship, because I'm still processing it. I'm still grieving this person. I still miss this person every day, despite despite how trifling this man was. And that's because I have attachment issues that I need to work on. Oopsies. But I also just think that there was a lot of reasons why this relationship, quote unquote, I say that quote unquote because that wasn't a relationship situation, whatever, did not work out. But me being transgender was a really big part of it, and has because of me never meeting anybody, never meeting friends or whatever. I didn't even want to meet this man's family. I just wanted to meet a friend every now and then. That kind of wounded me a lot and has contributed to a lot of the heartbreak that I have gone through. But aside from that, I also think that right now it is breakup. There's something in the air. It is breakup season right now. I don't know if it's because we're in Scorpio, but literally over the last 3 days, a bunch of coworkers have come up to me and have told me that one of my coworkers just got out of a relationship with her long-term boyfriend. I had another coworker who she was in a situationship with this guy that kind of just fell apart. I've been overhearing conversations at my restaurant, just people that I'm waiting on, talking about people that they're trying to get over. I don't know if this is just, I think part of it is just something that is innately human. We're always talking about our relationships or whatever, because we need to process those feelings, and I think that's a really important part of the healing process. But it feels in general there's just something in the air right now. So if you're sitting here and you're listening to this episode and you are experiencing heartbreak, I just want to say I'm sorry, because I know that's a really shitty feeling to go through. So I guess the first thing we need to do, in case any of you don't know what DL is, DL means down low. So it is a guy who has not openly dated a trans woman. And I don't want to say he's not out or whatever, but because of the way that society treats trans women, and unfortunately the men who date us, there's an aspect of coming out for some men when they are dating trans women, because of that just is not a part of this person's regular everyday life or their social sphere or their family, etc. So there is an element of coming out. So also like me talking about this, I feel like every trans girl has fallen in love with a DL guy, and this is honestly just like a canon event if you like date cis men. I feel like this is pretty common, unfortunately, to latch on to somebody who is not committing to you and is disrespecting you and is just kind of keeping you like hidden away, and for trans women to just like accept that because we've been taught that we are not like lovable and that there's something like inherently shameful about being a beautiful transgender woman. I don't get it personally, but I mean, I think that obviously it is something that like I struggled with because, you know, we'll talk about later in the episode, is that relationships are a reflection of how you feel about yourself. So why does this happen? Why do trans women date guys that are not interested in committing to them whatsoever, or are holding on to hope with somebody that somebody is just going to come out and show you off to the world, when that man knows, and deep down you know that that man is not going to do that for you. And that's because like of the way that like society treats trans women, unfortunately, about how society looks at us like, not, I don't want to say society like as a whole, but like transphobia is pretty heavily ingrained into our culture. In, you know, when we see like men dressing up as women and it's like a gag for like a man to be like feminine, like it's like super funny. And if you watch like any comedy special, there's always like a jab at like trans women like 90% of the time. Like that's like just a joke that is thrown around like very frivolously. And so I think what happens is, because of that transphobia, when you are kind of stepping out onto the dating scene, you kind of are going in with that knowledge and are almost like expecting to be treated poorly. And if you're expecting to be treated poorly and then somebody treats you better than shitty, you settle, and you don't realize you're settling because you have nothing else to compare it to. And another reason I think this happens is because, like, you know, like, I feel like a lot of us are like ugly ducklings, and then all of a sudden we become gorgeous. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but I've come a long way in my transition in the last like year. Okay, like I got my FFS, I got my hair extensions, and I'm about to get my titties done in January. Like, I've come a long way in a very short time, and I kind of feel like I've, you know, grown out of like my awkward transitioning phase for the most part. And if anybody's in that, like, I guess, quote unquote, awkward transitioning phase. But I mean, it's just, you're going through puberty for like a second time. I feel like right now I'm like a junior in high school. And then once I get, you know, titties, I'll be like senior in high school. And then I don't know, maybe I get SRS in college or something. We'll see. But yeah, the reason why we end up in these situations is because like we're vulnerable. Like, I feel like we've been accustomed to, especially like early in your transition, and your only comparison of dating is like hooking up with men on Grindr. Like, and then somebody comes along and wants to take you to dinner. You're like, wait, like, you're willing to be seen in public with me? Like, oh my God. And we kind of fall into these patterns because we have boundaries and we've been used to being treated shittily. Like, you know, there's a point in my life where I thought I was going on a date when I was sitting in a car with a man and sucking his dick. I was like, I'm going on a date. That's crazy. I would get dressed up for that. Girl, bye. Don't do that shit. If any of you are having car sex, like, I would encourage you to look within just a little bit, because you deserve better than that. But if that's your thing and you're living your best life, go for it. But there's weirdos out there, okay? Like, you never know who the killer is. I will say that. So I don't condone meeting up with strangers unless you drop an address and you know this man's name, etc., because there are dangerous people out there. Anyways, sorry, random tangent. So we essentially get into these DL relationships because we are coming into our own. We are vulnerable. We don't know any better, honestly. And maybe we're stuck in a shame-based attachment style, whether that's anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, or fearful avoidant attachment. I'm not going to get too into those right now. Maybe we'll do a separate episode. But I think for the most part, especially as women, we fall into anxious or fearful avoidant. I think that avoidant is more. I feel like more men struggle with dismissive avoidant attachment patterns. But anyways, so we're vulnerable, right? We get into these situations and we don't have anything else to compare it to, and so we have poor boundaries. And the reason why I think that I held on to my situationship for so long was because I knew that once I set that boundary, that man would go away. And I did have to set that boundary, and that's why it ended. And also because this man gave me no other choice. So why don't secret relationships or DL quote unquote relationships work long term? And if you're listening to this and not watching me, I'm saying relationships in air quotes because you cannot be in a relationship with a guy who is not integrating you into his life by meeting friends or family. That's not a fucking relationship. And unfortunately, my father had to tell me that. But my dad is my number one man in my life, and I always listen to him. So shout out Sean, love you. But anyways, why don't secret or DL relationships work long term? And I came up with an analogy that I think just encapsulates it very well, and I call it the rose analogy. So bear with me. I want you to imagine that you are this little rose in maybe you're you're stuck in some weeds or whatever, and you're starting to grow up outside of the weeds, and you're just this tiny little shy little pretty little rose that nobody notices. And then this gardener comes along and plucks you out of the weeds and puts you in a little pot and gives you soil and waters you, and he places you on his windowsill, and he tells you, one day I will plant you in my garden, but I just have to wait for the right season to plant you. And I also need to know if you are the right rose bush to plant in my garden. And at first you're just happy to be there. You're happy to be getting affection. You're happy to be getting out, to not be in the weeds anymore. You're being watered, you're being nurtured. Maybe it's winter outside, so this man is or this gardener, sorry. So this gardener is extra attentive with you. But what happens is that by the time summer comes around and his garden is in full bloom, you are just a sad pot of flowers on his windowsill that he occasionally dumps a cup of water in. And you are just waiting for him to dump a cup of water into your pot so that you can feel replenished. And eventually, if you do not leave this gardener's windowsill, if you do not get out and decide to plant roots somewhere else, you are going to wither up and you are going to die because you are being neglected by the gardener. And the gardener is too busy worried about his garden than the fucking sad little rose bush that he plucked out of the weeds and put on his windowsill. And I think this analogy is helpful because a relationship is not you waiting for the gardener for him to plant you in his garden. And when I say garden, I mean his life. So these are, you know, his day-to-day interactions. This is, you know, his garden is the people that he surrounds himself with on a daily basis, the people he talks to. He is not incorporating you into his life. And that's not a relationship. That's possession, and that's manipulative, because he's telling you that he's going to plant you in his garden, but he's not going to, because there are other flowers. There are other flowers that are not sad in his fucking windowsill that maybe have been attended to in a nursery that he could just take home and plant in his garden instead. But that's not what a relationship is. A relationship is when two gardeners come together and they, with a vision, decide to create something together. So yeah, if you allow yourself to be a rose bush and give somebody the option to whether or not to incorporate them into your day-to-day life, like into their day-to-day life, then you are giving all of your power away to somebody who will end up not giving a fuck about you in the end. I'm just saying. So I do want to say that, like, this DL guy, maybe you have feelings for him and he says he has feelings for you, is not going to change, because you need to be with somebody that is where your transness is not an issue. Because so long as he is reaping the benefits of a relationship and you are giving all of that to him for free, thinking that he loves you so much and you love him so much that you guys will overcome any obstacles that come in that come your guys' way, he's not going to do that for you, because he's not going to make himself uncomfortable when he's already getting everything that he wants out of the relationship. And that's where boundaries come in, right? So I also had like a coworker that I talked to, and my coworker has coincidentally dated like trans women like in the past. And so it was interesting to like talk to him about this, because he said that he ended things with the trans girl because he could not give her what she deserved and what she wanted. And he said that it does not matter how passable you are, how beautiful you become, like at the end of the day, like your transness is still there. And that's really sad. But like he said that like that was something that he had to work through, that it was not your problem, like not like my problem or whatever. Like that man has to dig through the layers of his own crap to get to himself in order to be in a relationship with a trans woman, if that is something that he has never done before. And I think that if you're hating yourself for your transness in this relationship, then that is going to be reflected in the relationship. And I felt like I was kind of caught in this like toxic cycle where like I felt like I was pretty comfortable in myself, because I did this fucking twice. It took me 2 times to learn the lesson, and a full year of my life. But I, you know, was insecure going into that relationship. And the second time I came around, I was a little bit more secure in myself. But once I, you know, wasn't really like honest with myself of what I wanted and what I needed, I began to like hate my transness, because I viewed me being transgender as an obstacle in the relationship. And I don't know if this person felt hatred for themselves because this person loved me and cared about me. But I do think that it was like that you guys are reflecting that energy to one another. Like it's a shame-based relationship where you are not willing to set boundaries with this man. Subconsciously, you think that you are not lovable and that only one person in the world is going to like, you know, treat you like a girl and show you off to the world, when that's really not the truth. And I think that shame just like kind of grows and grows, and the relationship just becomes like stagnant, and both of you are no longer getting anything out of the relationship because it's like it gets stuck. Because if you're not meeting other people in this person's life, then you're not in a relationship. You guys are just living the same day over and over again, like it's fucking Groundhog's Day. So that's honestly how it ends. Either the relationship becomes like stagnant and is sad, and it's no longer something that either of you are reaping joy from. Maybe he says something hurtful to you. Like the first time I was with him, like this person said to me that like he wanted biological children, and like, you know, pretty much like just broke up with me and just kind of like copped out, even though there were like other problems. But so, and then I still went back, which is crazy, girl, that I went back after that. Or this person has like done you dirty and was like living a double life. And I found out after the fact that, you know, after this relationship, that this person, like, for I don't even know how fucking long, I don't know the story, but like was openly dating somebody else, and was like, she met his friends, and like that really fucking hurt me, honestly. Like I'm still not over that. Like that kind of like threw me through a loop, and like it sucks because like I can't even be like, this girl was ugly, because she was really fucking hot, and honestly they're like a really good fit. But anyways, so the relationship is not going to end well, and ultimately I had to walk away from it before I even knew that, because I was like no longer happy, and like I began to hate myself so deeply in the relationship, and my life like fell apart because of it, because I was trying to become somebody that I was not, and I could not become, you know, who he needed me to be, and that man could not become who I needed to be. And that's just why relationships don't work. Because one or both people are not able to meet all of this person's needs. And it's sad, but that's life. We move on. And you know, maybe you're wondering, maybe you've went through this situation and you're wondering, how the fuck do I get over it? Like, honestly, like, it fucking sucks. Like, breakups are horrible. Like, I can tell you all the shit, like, get a new hobby, feel the feelings, blah, blah, blah. Like, honestly, like, it hasn't been easy. Like, I was really depressed for, like, the first month. And then after about a month, I found out all this other information. And that, you know, I was like, oh, okay. So that added like another layer of like grief and anger and betrayal on top of the depression that like I was already feeling. But like honestly, like I cried a lot, I talked to people, I threw shit out my wall, I journaled, I screamed, I ripped apart my notebook. I was a little bit girl interrupted, and that's okay. But something that I like saw online, I don't know if you know who Heidi Priebe is. She's an amazing writer and content creator. I highly recommend you guys look her up if you haven't. But she wrote something along the lines of like, grief is the successor to love. Like, love always ends with grief. And what people don't tell you is that moving on means continuing to take steps forward despite having a hole in your heart. And that's what it means to get over a breakup, is to continue to live your life with a void, even though it is hard. But you have to start to fill that void with other things, and to create something even more beautiful and even more amazing for yourself. And honestly, like, I miss this person. I miss him every day, despite his actions toward me, but I know that there's no going back, and that's the shittiest part. Like, there's no redeeming. Like, me walking away was the last shred of dignity I had, and it was the most loving thing that I could do for myself, and that's what I have to remember every fucking day, despite being sad about it. So, if any of you have gone through that, or are going through that right now, I'm really fucking sorry, because it's shitty and it's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And I hope that either by listening to this episode, you feel a little bit more seen, or you have a little more clarity around a situation that you are in right now. Or you are able to just bypass that completely and not do the situationship, and not do the situationship DL guy to broken heart pipeline. Because on one hand, I wish I could have avoided it, but on the other hand, like, I think that this person came into my life for a certain reason. Sorry. And I think sorry, oh my God, I didn't want to get emotional, but I think I needed to love somebody at that time in my life. Like, I needed to feel something, and I needed to just, like, get that out of me, because I hadn't experienced that before. But anyways, I'm sorry. But for all of you girls who took the time to listen to this episode today, I want to thank you. And I'm sorry if it sounded like all over the place. I'm really trying to get it together and create good content for you guys. But let me know what you thought about this episode, and if you've been through something similar, and what you've done to get over it. But so until next time, see you next Tuesday. XOXO. Mwah. Bye.